Hello, viewers. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. I am, as usual, Vibhuti Jha, your host today. And always, as I request you, please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Give your feedback and support every which way possible. As you all know, Operation Sindoor was carried out by Indian Armed Forces, India government, in a complete symphony and orchestrated by all the three primary army sources: Navy, Air Force, and armed forces, the ground forces. Very synchronized, very coordinated attack happened, Operation Sindoor. Today, I want to talk to you about, did India achieve the goals of Operation Sindoor? To talk about this, I have once again the pleasure of hosting and inviting with us today Dr. Adityanji and Mr. Mohan Sonti. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the show today to talk about the objective analysis whether Operation Sindoor was a successful attempt to silence the marauders, the murderers and killers and terrorists who took Hindu lives in the name of religion in Pahalgam just a few days ago. So that response has been given. Adityanji, Mike, to you first, your assessment.
My assessment is that the Operation Sindoor has served very important strategic signaling purpose, and it has made very clear to the adversary that hiding behind niceties is not going to protect any one of them. Now, when I say strategic signaling, that strategic signaling is not to one entity. Actually, it is to multiple entities. So, on one hand, India is signaling to the West that if we are attacked, if there are terror attacks against us, there's not going to be any quote unquote strategic patience or strategic restraint, unlike 26 November or unlike the parliamentary attack in December of 2001, where strategic patience and strategic restraint became the buzzword. We are not going to do that. That is to the West. Then there is a strategic signaling message to certain countries that are hostile to India, and those countries are, if I may name them, China and Turkey. Turkey sent a ship full of arms, and China has been making noises. China protected a terrorist on international fora, whether that was United Nations Security Council, whether that was FATF, because of Chinese veto, certain entities were not designated as terrorist organization. So there is a strategic messaging to China and Turkey: enough is enough. We are not going to deal with any of this BS. Then there is strategic signaling to Pakistan and its cohort. Whether it is Pakistan's civilian so-called government, or it is the actual power structure of ISI and GHQ, specifically General Asif Munir, it's very evident message that we shall take action at the time of our choosing, and we shall select the targets without any inhibitions. You can keep on rattling your nuclear assets to blackmail international opinion. We are not concerned about it. Then it is a strategic messaging and signaling to so-called non-state actors, which are in cahoot with Pakistan's armed forces establishment. You are not safe. You are not safe in your headquarters. Whether it is in Muridke, whether it is in Bahawalpur. In fact, this guy, Azhar Masood, he admitted that 10 of his family members are dead. Four of his associates, the terror associates, terrorists, are dead. Pakistani government has given the figures that there were 26 fatalities and 43 injured in this operation. They have not specified that it is only at Bahawalpur or all the 9 sites. So there's a strategic signaling to the non-state actors that give deniability to Pakistan that you are not safe in your headquarters, whether your headquarters are in Pakistan or Jihadistan occupied part of Kashmir or Ladakh, or they are in Pakistan proper. If you are running terror factories, if you are running terror training camp, if you are running terror launch pads, they are not safe because the deepest strike went actually 100 kilometers into the territory of Pakistan, not Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Now, strategic signaling does not end there. To West, the time for strategic restraint or patience is gone. Having said that, the government, the MEA spokesperson, the military spokespersons emphasize that the operation in non-escalatory is not directed on civilians and it is not directed towards Pakistan's military facilities. Implications is that only we are interested in destroying the terror infrastructure. We are not seeking full-scale war. And to Pakistan's allies, a message has been sent that if Pakistan escalates, there will be escalation ladder and an appropriate response would be given. However, we are not saber rattling full scale war. We are not saber rattling the nuclear assets and things like that. But there are some strategic messaging to domestic element in India also. In last 2 weeks, lot of misinformation, lot of pressure was put on the government. On one hand, people were trying to say, oh, this will cause civilian distress, this, that, we need to take care of the civilians, or we should not actually sort of, restrict the water supply. So to the leftist liberal section of the toolkit gang, there's a strategic signaling. You are irrelevant now. We are not going to listen to your disinformation campaign. Whether that disinformation campaign comes in Indian media or it comes in international media because they are in cahoots with the international leftist liberal, gang. So there at multiple levels, strategic messaging has been given. And the best thing was that Foreign Secretary Misri conducted this briefing with two women officers, one Muslim, one Hindu, one member of army, Colonel Safia Qureshi, and the other wing commander, Vyomika Singh. This was, and the name of the operation is very, very symbolic. So ultimately, when you decide success or failure or something like that, you have to look what multiple purposes this operation has served. It has
Excellent.
served.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful opening statement. It is very clear that the strategic intent was to fire away rapid firing on many directions and goals achieved. Same question to you, Mohanji. Your opinion on this?
So regarding the goals of the Operation Sindoor, there are a few things we have to keep in mind. The number one is how we have done the escalation, right? The first time in Uri, if you think about it, it's actually a covert operation that only the Bhartiyas would know, and then we reveal it to the world on what we have actually done, right? And then the Pahalgam, not Pahalgam, the one before Pulwama, we went and struck in the Balakot. It is deep inside the Pakistan territory, but what we have used is the PGM, the precision guided munitions, is the spice bombs. So we use that to destroy the Balakot. But the information, people know that something went there, we did attack them, but the details are still not completely known to many of the people on how many people died and things like that. Pakistan claims only one crow and a tree died, but obviously that is nonsense. So everyone knows something has happened, and for 6 years they kept quiet. But in Operation Sindoor, actually we have escalated it further by actually using the scalp missiles, right? The Shadow Storm, the Scalp missiles, and we used the Hammer. Now, the difference, if you look at how the objectives are met, the goals, we went from the covert operation to using the bombs to actually using the missiles. Missiles means that we don't even have to enter into their territory, and we're going to sit here and launch the missiles and destroy their targets. So I think that is in a military scale, that is a sharp escalation and show of power on that the fact that we can attack them. So that is the key objective. Secondly, will it achieve the goals? As in, we have picked 9 targets. So like Adityanji was also saying, we showed that there were terrorists and they killed our civilians here. So something that Pakistan is supposed to do, which they didn't. So like what America and other countries do. So we went and attacked the terrorist targets. So there should not be any escalation. If the military gets involved from that side and does any harm to our civilians or the military infrastructure, then it is they who is inviting a war. It is not us, because we did not attack the civilians, or I think Aditya also mentioned that before, we didn't attack the civilians and we didn't attack any military targets. And the fact that we can enter deep inside and attack them is what we have established. Will it solve the problem? Well, Israel has been trying this for 1,000 years. They haven't solved it. We haven't solved it in 70 years. There were 4 wars and nothing has stopped them. So because it is in their nature, it is not going to end here, and it will never end because it's just in their nature, right? So it is not a final thing. This issue is going to continue. And one last point about China, in the last 4 wars that we had, China has never intervened. If you look carefully, China is not going to put its soldiers and die for some other country. China is sensible enough to know that it can fund and it can do many other nasty things behind the scene, but it never lets its own soldiers go and fight somebody else's war. It hasn't done in the previous 4 wars that we had, even though Pakistan keeps calling them as deeper than ocean and higher than mountain friends, but they never came to their rescue ever. And I don't anticipate China coming to their rescue this time either.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What is also very interesting is that, I came across the news item. Pakistan is today shouting against India for India attacking it, forgetting in the process that only a few months ago, Pakistan had attacked Afghanistan to attack some camps that they suspected that Taliban was attacking them from there. Not only that, 6 to 7 months ago, they had attacked inside Iranian territory on the Baloch part of the problem. Iran retaliated, not deep inside Pakistan, but there were skirmishes. So for Pakistan, which has always denied tourist camps, terrorist camps in its location, which is what India has been always asking for. We are not asking for evidence, but if you say that they are non-state actors, don't let them use your soil. Since you can't stop them, we are coming to do that. This is the moment where the cup of woe was overflowing for India. This became the point of no return. The other thing which I wanted to also ask you was here, you said that China will never spend their forces to fight for anybody else, and they haven't fought a war since 1962 anyway. Let's put it that way. It's a very critical element that people forget, right? So tell us something about the element that news item also flashed out very quickly, that soon as China is recognizing that a lot of industries will go from there to India, and Apple announced that they are going to set up manufacturing here, it is Chinese who manipulated through its courtesan, through its rentier guy in Pakistan, do something there, distract. Do you think that is playing a big role here? China is the big elephant in the room.
See, China always wanted to meddle in our affairs because it uses Pakistan as a proxy, but said that I think the 3 characteristics that I mentioned last time about Pakistan. One is it's a psychopathic nation, basically it destroys things and it doesn't even have to get any benefit out of it. It destroys out of the sheer pleasure of it, right? And number 2 is it's basically a mercenary state, which means all the countries are going to borrow their military and they have used for their dirty work, right? And the third is it is a suicidal nation, so it has no limits to it. So is China going to use it? It absolutely is going to use Pakistan. So did America and Russia or Saudi or any other nation. Everybody is going to use them. So there's nothing new out there, right? But the other point you mentioned about the terrorists within, it had a fight not just with the Taliban and the Iran on one side and Bharat on the other side. It also had a lot of, if you look at most of the bomb blasts and attacks that they did, it's against the Sunnis against the Shias within their country. And also it has attacks on the Balochistan, and it has suppresses things in Sindhudesh. So if you look at it, it is basically a complete mess. It quarrels with everybody. It's not at peace with itself, it quarrels with everyone. So that is a fundamentally a psychopathic nation in that sense. So that is the problem we are dealing with here.
If I may join here.
Yes, yes, yeah, please go ahead.
Before coming to China question, you mentioned about Pakistan actually attacking terrorist training camps in Afghanistan and Iran. There are a couple of things that you need to know. Just this morning, Pakistani army officers wearing Pakistani army uniforms participated in the religious funeral ceremony of terrorists, reading ayahs of Quran. That demolishes that the terrorist organization in Pakistan are non-state actors. Actually, the word I use them for is state-supported actors. And the deniability is gone when you have high-ranking army officers wearing army uniform, participating in funeral processions and funeral, observations of terrorists who have died recently. The other thing is that not only Pakistani army attacked terror camps in Iran, they had gone several years ago into Sistan Baluchistan province of Pakistan and kidnapped and abducted an Indian businessman who was a retired Navy officer, and his name is Kulbhushan Jadhav. He is still in Pakistani custody. He is still in Pakistani jail. They had sentenced him to death. So Pakistan has a very stellar record of actually violating the international borders and international boundaries, doing irregular gray zone operations, including terrorism, as a state policy since the inception of the state. So those 2 points I wanted to be made clear. As far as China is concerned, I will tell you that yes, China believes in Sun Tzu. They want to win the war without fighting any battles. That has been their classic tendencies. And I'll just correct you that the last war they fought was not in 1962. The last war fought by China was in 1979 against Vietnam.
Correct.
They got a bloody nose.
79, yeah, 45 years ago.
And since then, they have been so traumatized that they have not entered into a full-scale war. They have their own battles to fight in South China Sea. They have other priorities at this point in time. So they are not going to, and they have never come in support of Pakistan in any of the wars, including 1971 when Henry Kissinger exhorted Chinese leadership to join the war against India on the northern front. And they didn't have the guts or courage or chutzpah, or let me say, anatomical fortitude to join the direct war at that point in time in 1971. So yes, they will use Pakistan as a proxy. They will use Bangladesh as a proxy. They will use Maldives as a proxy. Whenever they try to have any direct contact with Indian armed forces, they get a bloody nose. It is possible that China may be one of the determining factors, but here the person who is responsible is General Asif Munir. And that's the person who is taking the decisions. One would not bother about China, what China is doing, if there is an escalation. If there is an escalation, if there's a military escalation, then India has every right to de-escalate and decapitate the head of the snake. I am not going to say anything more than that,
Hmm.
but I think we should not be underestimating this guy.
I just want to add a few points to what Adityanji has just said. So regarding the doing the prayers and all of that, if you go to the Pakistani Army official government website and read their motto, right? It is an official government motto. It is not something that somebody else has said it. Go to that website, pakistanarmy.gov.pk. I have forwarded this to many people. I don't know if people in Bharat can access this link, but certainly in USA you can.
Yeah, you
It
shared
starts
with
off,
me, and I have seen that. Go ahead, tell
it
them that.
starts
I
off
was
with
going to
Tariq's
ask you
prayer.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts off with Tariq's prayer. Basically, it's about the Umayyad Caliphate invasion on Spain. It starts off with that on how greatly they accomplished that, right? On Iberian Peninsula, which is currently the Spain and Portugal. And then it basically talks about the whole idea is about how they have to establish the will of Allah, and it's basically a Muslim and Islamic rule that they want. All of that basically, whether it's an iman, taqwa, and they call it as jihad fi sabilillah. I mean, if you look at all of the description, and that is their motto. What is the motto for us, for our military or our army is Seva Paramo Dharmaha. That is ours. But this is the motto of Pakistani army. And regarding Asim Munir, if anyone doesn't know his background, he, until now, all the generals had like normal education. At least they had a pretense of being secular, right? Asim Munir is the first one who actually studied in a madrasa near Rawalpindi. His qualifications say so. He studied in a madrasa. He comes from a radical background, and he's the first mullah's son who has actually risen to that rank. So they have radicalized the entire military. A substantial, at least the lower ranks of the entire Pakistani military is no more professional military like any other military. They are basically, their motto says that it is the government army military motto, and they are completely radicalized people. They are basically the proper Islamic army as they believe it.
Right.
His father was an imam, and they had actually migrated after partition from Indian side of the Punjab. And actually, in certain ways, uh, in Rome, you try to outdo Romans. So the migrants, the muhajirs who went from the Indian side to Pakistan, they have no other identity except for Islamic identity, because they are not identified with the nationalities. The local, you are not Baluch, you are not Sindhi, you are not Pakhtun. Who are you? You are Muhajirs. Your only identity is defined by your adherence to Islam. So whether it was Musharraf, whether it was Ziaul Haq, whether it is Asif Munir, the three Muhajir generals of Pakistani army have actually flaunted and brandished their Islamic credentials as the way to acceptance, not only in Pakistani civil society but in Pakistani armed forces also. Nothing unusual.
Very true. I mean, I
Nice
remember
observation, Adityanji. That's
some
a
of
very nice
the
observation of those three. Yes, the three most radical people. Yeah.
some of the people from Sindh area here in New York. They told me, I'm not telling you hearsay. They said it that we regret having migrated to Pakistan. We are the fourth class citizens there. We are not treated equal, despite we becoming Muslims. So these people also know they converted. So what you said about the psychopathic scenario, that Pakistan, and I have said this in my, one of my takes, that the Indian subcontinent Muslims, who are 95% plus Hindus once upon a time, so they suffer from double whammy of a psychological shock. Aditya should put some word to it now. Psychotic and psychopathic doesn't do justice to their mental state, in my opinion, because at first they left Hinduism because of the threat of the sword, saving life. Some went out to economic consideration. And the third one, which was most deadly, most unfortunate, were those people who sought political patronage. So these three categories, these three elements, they are now Hindus once upon a time, they have become Muslims. So they suffer
I
from the
just
fact.
want to interject here one thing. It's
Yeah.
not just the Muhajirs who went from India. It's all the Pakistanis, all the occupants of the state of Pakistan. They were former Hindus.
Yes,
You
yes, yes.
know, they wore shalwar under the fear of talwar.
Correct.
That is the thing.
So let
And
me finish the point which I was trying, then you can come back and interject there. So the point which I'm trying to drive here, that they are a psychological traumatic mind, because they gave up their own origin, their heritage, their parentage to adopt some other faith where they are treated as a third class citizen. And they have no escape from there, because then they will be killed, because there is no leaving that. And they realize that people like us, that India, they left, Hinduism that they left, Sanatani that they left, is so much more prosperous today. Obviously, there's something wrong out there. So the only way is die. And they hate us. The hatred against us is multiplied. So Adityanji, you come up with a term for that. But what is important here is to come back to the conversation. Winning the operation is one part. How is the initial stages of international reporting of this incident or of this element that we see today? Because generally, we Indians are very poor advertisers for our own self. So, how do you see that Ministry of ADG and the Ministry of External Affairs and have done in terms of media?
I think more than the media, it's the diplomatic messaging that is very, very important.
Yeah,
The National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, he has been, working the phones. He spoke to Marco Rubio in his dual capacity, because Marco Rubio is now the acting NSA. He
yeah,
has spoken to counterparts in Russia, UK, as well as with Chinese, as India's S-rep. He interacts with China's S-rep, China's foreign minister and state counselor Wang Yi. So he has been talking, and there have been actually conversations between Pete Hegseth and Rajnath Singh earlier than this. In fact, when you see President Trump in White House mentioning this, he started by saying it is a shame, and they've been fighting for thousands of years. He does not understand the history of India, does not understand that Pakistan was not there before 1947. But he also said very innocuously, I hope it ends soon, but I knew something was going to happen. So, what is important that all over the world, including in United Nations Security Council, Pakistan wanted a resolution to be brought, because Pakistan is one of the non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. And yes, United Nations Security Council met with. But apart from, you know, general making noise that you should not escalate the matter and you should not actually continue with fighting and all, they were known, like Pakistan tried to say that it was a false flag operation, and nobody bought that. And actually, people asked them counter questions as to what was your role in Pahalgam terror attack, in terror strikes, you know. So Pakistan was put in a very embarrassing situation, that they did not meet their objective despite being members of the United Nations Security Council at this point in time, being inside the room, whereas India is not a member at this point in time. And they thought that with China's help, yes, the resolution was watered down, and the resolution did not mention about asking the religion of the victims first before killing them. That was the only concession given. So, in all possible aspects, India's diplomatic messaging has been great. Nations are not questioning India at this point in time. Having said that, maybe the legacy media may still have certain issues, but even New York Times changed its stance. And I was very surprised. In Irish Times, there was an editorial castigating India and not talking about the terror strikes and all. And for the first time, I read a letter by India's ambassador to Ireland, Akhilesh Mishra, you know, tearing Irish Times to pieces while lauding the Irish MPs for condemning the terrorism. So here is a slight divide, that the governments are taking a different stance internationally now, but the legacy media and the leftist, whatever network you may call, they are still at their game. Interesting thing from India, There's a lady by name, I think Vaishna Shah or something like that. She's editor of the Frontline magazine, which is an outfit of the Hindu, whatever company that publishes the Hindu newspaper. She writes a tweet that I strongly object to the term Operation Sindoor on grounds of principle, blah, 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 because this portrays actually Indian women as property, and the tweet is not even public. It was protected tweet, but she was so heavily trolled by the other people on Twitter.
Actually, I have
Similarly,
a copy. If you're interested, I can read the whole thing.
yeah,
It was sent to me just now. So she says, on principle, I object strongly to the label Operation Sindoor. It reeks of patriarchy, ownership of women, honor killings, chastity, sacralizing the institution of marriage, and similar Hindutva obsessions. I mean, to this, I personally think that she should actually try giving this kind of a lecture to any of the Islamic nations and see if she can actually survive there. Usually, they practice all the secularism in safe places, if you look at it, right? Whether it's in USA, Europe, or other places, once they make sure they are safe is when they talk all this nonsense.
I
They
think
really go and tackle the real
the
problem. They don't have that. Yeah,
important thing is
One
that
minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, Aditya. What the point I'm trying to say that here is the one I want both of you to comment on that. Yes, I agree with you. You know, like the communication strategies of the government of India, and I put all departments together in this particular statement, they have been very outstanding. My concern is of a different kind. Is the enemy within? You know, like Satpal Malik giving an interview to Karan Thapar, people like Arfa Khanum Sharwani, Pajama Kurta, and Rana Ayubs of the world, who make statements of the kind that incites people of a particular variety. Rajdeep Sardesai, honorable mentions all, if I may say so.
you forgot
You know,
Ravish Kumar.
yeah. So all those things which are there, you know, enemy within, you know, General Rawat said, point 5 is more dangerous than the enemy outside.
correct.
And to that extent, you know, I applauded Asad Owaisi. He was totally strongly vocal in saying Pakistan Murdabad, Hindustan Zindabad. I never thought he would do that.
Uh,
Not only that, he also, if I'm wrong, please correct me. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Pakistan Murdabad,
there is a
not
yeah,
Hindustan, Bharat Zindabad.
Yeah, Bharat
He was
Zindabad.
wearing
there is
this
a there's a
turban.
reason why OIC supports that. I mean,
Tell me,
one
tell me. I
one
want to
key
hear. You are
important thing
from,
we
I'm
have to
from
keep.
some, yeah, that
Yeah.
part of the world also. Yeah.
So one key important thing we have to remember is OIC is actually a Shia in a Sunni majority area of Hyderabad. All right, and Pakistan has no. It's a Sunni majority country. Iran is the Shia majority. So all his rhetoric is against Pakistan. So he looks like he's actually supporting Bharat, but really, if you think deeply, you go against Iran, then he is going to be the same person who is going to fight against Bharat. All his love for Bharat is suspicious at the least. I'm not saying for a fact that he's not patriotic, but certainly it's highly suspicious because I mean, last time we had an issue with Iran regarding the Chabahar port and all of that, he makes the largest noise because that is Shia. So the issue is he is not pro Bharat, he's just anti Pakistan as much as Iran is anti Pakistan. So that is one commonality we have. So we can't be sure whether he was actually saying that Pakistan Murdabad from a Bharat perspective or from an Iran perspective. We just don't know that. So let's
Yeah.
not come to conclusions, is all that I'm saying.
You never can draw upon any conclusion on that faith. As somebody said, Ambedkar said, I did cover that in my show. Actually, I had the quote entirely, in which he said that these people will kill each other, but when it comes to Hindu, they will all unite.
I think
Aditya,
we
your
need
thought.
to understand what is the larger concept. Larger concept is not of a nation state, larger concept of Ummah, and larger concept is of caliphate. Uh, Having said that, uh, Owaisi is trying to win brownie points for his electoral survival. There is a larger method to his machinations because he's trying to make himself as a relevant factor, trying to devour the vote banks of Congress and Samajwadi Party wherever he can. So he has a different trajectory and different mindset at this point in time. I think it will not be very relevant or pertinent at this point in time to discuss India's domestic politics. which is somewhat messy and somewhat confusing to an outside observer. But let's focus more on the international dimensions of this conflict.
Adityanji, it is my show and I'm running it. So
Okay,
I
go
would
ahead.
like to run the show the way I want to. So
Yeah. Can I mention one thing about the
one second,
propaganda part?
hold on. Let me come to that. So the issue here is that domestic and international these days they all flow together. The information flow is the same. And everybody has the ability to influence one way or the other. So the same man is I mean failed miserably in the last few elections. I understand that game. I also understand the game of what you call, his electoral requirements, Shia honesty, and everything else. But he said that. So if he's saying something against Pakistan, I'm okay with that. If he is on a temporary ally of mine, I'm okay with that. But I'll deal with it later when the time comes. Okay, that's one part which I wanted to say. But I wanted to come. You wanted to say something, Mohanji?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about the media and propaganda you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah.
So one thing is when we talk about the China and the involvement of China and other supports, external support, I think it is relevant to also talk about the support from the traitors we have within Bharat, that zero point 0.5 that you mentioned,
Right.
because they all are part of the whole big package, right? So the second point regarding the propaganda or the media that you mentioned, so the idea is, I think we had talked about this in one of our shows earlier too, is that anyone who does nasty things tend to have a fantastic show on how to do the propaganda, because that is how they survive, because their actions don't speak well, right? So propaganda has always been a very integral part of an Abrahamic system, wherein they do a bunch of nasty things and they have to cover their tracks by showing something glorious. So in that sense, can we match one to one with the media here? Not necessarily. It's not going to be easy because they're in their natural element. They really enjoy that. So that is one problem. The only thing that can match with them is we should create a media from our side that can also match them in how they're talking. With our media showing the path on what is the true facts and how do you present the news, which is a lot of media in Bharat is actually doing that. There are a lot of news channels which are actually trying to go and present the facts as they are, as opposed to the channels like the CNN and New York Times, and many of them are basically propaganda machineries,
Hmm.
right? I mean, they don't even hide that fact. They're very clear on which side they are. So, which essentially make them a propaganda machineries. Other than that, they're nothing. So we cannot directly match them. And there's a lot of funding that goes into it. We have to remember it's a private enterprise. It's a public companies,
Correct.
which means there's a profit making. So the news is not news if it doesn't make any profit. So if they'll sprinkle some truth in it, just to show that you cannot be completely wrong. But other than that, they can just talk complete nonsense and get away with it. And
That's right. And that's what majority of the time it happens.
I would say
Majority of
that's
the
more
time,
like an extension of an entertainment industry,
yes.
where they're just catering to the people's, whatever their feelings. They see that, and they're just selling whatever they want to. In fact, Facebook and all the AI actually
In
does
the
that more appropriately, right?
in the remaining few minutes that I have, I wanted to also ask you both the same question so that we save on time. Vinash kale viparita buddhi. We know that. And do you think Pakistan's Pap ka ghada is full, and now it is time for them to be sent back home? What is the scenario? Your assessment on that? Is Pakistan going to go down because of their own false beliefs, or will a wisdom strike them that, hey guys, we have done enough. Now it's time to correct the path? What do you think? Will they do that?
Who
Or
do you
will they
want,
escalate? Escalate.
who do you want to start with?
You will start.
Pakistan will continue to behave in the way it has been behaving. They are not going to take it lying down. They will escalate, but they will not escalate in the escalation ladder to full scale war.
Okay.
When you have war, there are multiple types of warfares.
Right.
India is doing that. We talked about propaganda or information warfare.
Yep.
There's cyber warfare. There may be other kinds of things.
Mm.
So Pakistan will escalate because they have to have face saving. They will not They will keep quiet for 3 4 days, and there will be some incident, and then they say we retaliated. They are already claiming that they downed 5 Indian jets and this and that, so we are the victorious ones, kind of thing. Whether they have such idiotic brain that they will invite total decimation and annihilation of their state, that is questionable. I think still Pakistan will do what is called Noora Kushti. They will say some action, so called action. Even Chinese do that, like that sometimes. At the time of Galawan and all, they try to put propaganda that, how many Indians died and we lost none, and then later on four. So Pakistan will indulge in rhetoric as well as some symbolic action. But at this point in time, where the nation is bankrupt, they were supposed to have IMF meeting on May 9th, where they were begging for $1.6 billion tranche of the $9 billion assistance package from IMF. I don't think they will escalate to a full-scale war, because
Very
full-scale
good
war
point. Very
means
good point. If you want money from IMF and international agencies, you can't be saying that I'm fighting India and give me money now.
they just play the victim card. That is what they will do.
Right. Mohanji, I will add one more
Yeah.
question to you, then we will end the show today. Is the fact, does Pakistan have the ability, capability, economic sustainability to engage in a full scale war with India? Should India take advantage of that? Or
Uh,
tell me.
So Pakistan has probably supplies for about 2 to 3 days at most, and maybe if they stretch it, they'll probably have for 4 days if Turkey and other people supply it. So it has absolutely no chance of continuing with this war. But said that to your earlier point on Vinashakale Viparita Buddhi, the issue is Pakistan being a mercenary state. It is basically a completely useful idiot to the whole world, and a lot of people, a lot of other countries are taking advantage of it. The way to solve this problem is dismantling Pakistan to little pieces so that that big idiot becomes several little idiots and they won't be as useful to others. Because Pakistan is a very large country with 250 million people. And therefore, and one of the largest countries, which actually acts as a mercenary state, is like perfect for China, Russia, America, or Saudi. Everybody loves to have that kind of a country. But if we can dismantle that to little chunks, then there is a potential for them to reform, because now they only have their own psychopathy to deal with, and see if they can reform their own education system and their own governance that they can focus on, and rest of the country's intervention will reduce. It may not be eliminated, but it will certainly, like there's less number of intervention in Bangladesh, let's say, compared to Pakistan, right? Because it's a large country. So I think that is a way to solve it. So as long as Pakistan as an entity exists, that is going to be, I think, this Mandarin Albright or someone said it's an international migraine or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think they will remain that way. So I think the solution is to divide that entity called Pakistan, should be removed, cut them to like few pieces. They become manageable, and I think Sindhu Desh and other regions have high potential to actually improve and get better.
Absolutely. Look, gentlemen, it has been a
And Balochistan will follow because they have national resources, so they too will improve.
there is hope. As I say, I always say, every disaster offers an opportunity. You gave the pathway for how that particular thing can survive only by breaking up and bringing some sanity in that arena. And having said that, I also feel that India will get more aggressive in its stance. So now that the free trade agreement is reportedly signed with UK, with a very, very liberal, virtually a woke prime minister there, I hope India has succeeded in inserting a clause that no support to any element in the country that is anti-India, added to that political clause, to the trade clause. What do you think, Aditya? I'll give you the last word on this.
everyone worships the rising sun, and India is the rising sun. You don't need a clause. UK knows that we have displaced them. Japan knows that in 2025, we are now the fourth largest GDP in nominal terms, in dollar terms. 2028, India would be the third largest. So we don't have to put any clause, it is understood. Having said that, I will emphasize and re-emphasize, Pakistan is an artificially contrived transitional state. It is going to implode from within. I really don't want Indian army or Indian soldiers to waste their capital, brave human resources in dismantling it, because it's going to implode from within. We just have to wait and watch and drain their resources. Drain their resources. You know what United States did with Union of Soviet Socialist Republic? Never a direct fight, but it was contained, it was broken from within. And that's the strategy India has to adopt without wasting your human resources in dismantling the state. It is on the way to destruction by itself. We
Right.
need to just catalyze the process, but no military force to do
What we need to do is to just put the little finger and the nudge beyond the tipping point. Thank you very much. Very ambitious, very optimistic conversation, and I'm very delighted that the Operation Sindoor achieved its primary goal. Now it is up to Pakistan to decide whether they work towards eliminating terrorism, protecting Islam from the bad name that it has got from because of these kind of state actors. I mean, I have no animosity towards any religion. As a Hindu, I told a Pakistani guy who asked me, "Why do you hate Islam?" I said, "I don't Islam. I'm a Hindu. I'm incapable of hating any religion because we have so many of them to pray to and whatever." So, what we wish them well. I hope Pakistan wakes up to the reality, whether they smell the kava or whether they smell coffee or they smell whatever. Wake up, smell the reality, and integrate with the rest of the world. That's where you save your people. And if not, then as Mohanji said, you will end up breaking up
that. I think we
because
just
other regions will not let you do that.
provide them enough rope to hang themselves.
Yes. So the question here is, will you survive or not? So far as India is concerned, Operation Sindoor has been successful. It did achieve its goals of the short term that was required. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining today. Thank you both, Adityanji and Mohanji, for being here. And as I always say, Satyameva Jayate, or truth to triumph, we got to fight for it.
Thank you very much indeed.
Say